Hello, welcome to your sixth GarageBand lesson from me. Today we're going to be learning to create a piece of classical music. We're going to explain what classical music sounds like and some of the instruments used, explain what a musical key is, and create a simple track with different classical instruments and techniques. So I'm going to play an example of what we're going to try and create, and then I'll talk a little bit about classical music. So that's my piece that we're going to try and create something similar. Classical music is kind of a genre of music that was written in the past, but it's now kind of often orchestras. It's maybe known as serious music as it's got a strict set of rules compared to some other forms of music. Famous composers, often you find classical music in movies and things like that. I suggest that you research it with your teacher to get full definitions. But the kind of instruments you see are often those that you'll see in an orchestra, sometimes in smaller groups, but those instruments feature. So we have the kind of strings instrument, the woodwind, the brass, and sometimes percussion. So I am going to go and create a new song, and I'll go to the plus button, and the first instrument I'm going to start with is strings. So here we are, strings, and I'm going to choose smart strings to begin with. So there's a few different options that you can choose for the strings. I'm going to choose modern. And you can see we can turn off different instruments. So classically in strings you have violins, violas, cellos and basses, and they get gradually bigger. Violins and violas you can hold on your shoulder, but cellos and basses you have to hold sitting on one part of them sitting on the ground. They tend to all have a bow that you use with them, but you can pluck the strings as well. So we are going to put the autoplay on free to get us a kind of basis for our track that we are going to create. So we are going to also look, one of the other things in the learning intention was to look at key signature, okay, our musical key. So if I go into the settings, you'll notice that these chords have stayed the same all the way through what we've been doing so far. But I want to change them. So I'm going to go into key signature, and I am going to choose E and make sure it's on major, and then I'm going to go back here. And you notice the keys change. Now, if I looked for a piano for a second, you'll see that keys, essentially each key starts on the note it's called. So this is C, and then D starts here, but you notice it starts to use black notes. So it's essentially which notes you're using will create the key. So you get the idea that it's essentially the note that the music starts on defines what the key is. So I'm going to jump back to the strings. So to make this easier for what we're going to put on top, we're just going to have two chord patterns. We're going to have E and A. So I'm going to start on E. I'm going to start on E and then I'm going to go to A. So let's press record. notice there, what I did was I changed from E to A each time there was a bar at the top. And that is going to be our basis for this song. So we've got our basis, then we're going to put in another strings. And this time we want the notes. And you'll see this is what all the necks of these instruments look like, that they have 4 strings, compared to a guitar usually has 6 strings. So 4 strings. We are going to select the scale here and make it major so that we can use notes that sound good together. So here is our start of our pattern, which is actually an E. So you can hear the notes going up, and if you jump to the next line, you can hear that. So we are going to select a single instrument, and that's the viola. So I've already selected that single instrument. You just tap on the one that you want. And then I am going to record a little piece on top of this, starting with that shaded note, and then I can go anywhere I like. So I just went up and down the notes a couple of times. I tried to make it kind of maybe equal between the 2 halves of those 8 bars, but you can come up with whatever you like. So now I am going to go back here, and we're going to add in a woodwind instrument. So actually, to find the woodwind instruments, we need to go to the keyboard, and I need to change the keyboard to an other, and I'm going to choose a clarinet. So a clarinet is a woodwind instrument. You can see a little picture of it here. Do look it up with your teacher to see a little bit more about the instrument. But essentially it's woodwind, so you blow into the top of it. It's got a little reed that vibrates and it makes the music. So again, we are going to choose a scale of major, and that means all these notes sound good together. And again, we're going to do a bit of improvisation and do something over the top of this, starting often with E, because if you start with a note that the key starts with, it always sounds good, and particularly if you then try and end with that note as well. So make sure I'm back at the start, and I'm going to come up with something. So in my example, I've tried to copy what I had in the strings, but you could have something slightly different as well. Now, if I go back to here, I'm going to add in another woodwind instrument. So I'm going to again go to the keyboard, and this time I am going to choose a flute. So flute, the difference between a clarinet and a flute you blow into the top, a clarinet you blow into the top of it, a flute you hold at the side and you blow over it. Again, look it up so you know what it is. And I am going to again go to the piano and select the scale. Okay, and I'm going to try and play a different melody this time. Okay, so there we are, and I played the flute quite high, but you could play it down here and it would be a little bit lower. Now, the last thing I'm going to add in is a little bit of a bass line using some brass. So I'm going to go again to the keyboard to get those other instruments, and I'm going to choose a French horn. So it's a type of brass instrument. And you see that there's little keys on it, and you again blow into it. So again, I think we'll get used to changing this to the major scale. In fact, no, this time I'd like to do chords, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to follow the chord pattern of that E and A, but I'm going to follow it in the bass line. Rather than up here, I'm going to follow it in the bass line just with the first shaded notes. So let's go to the start and hear this. Okay, so that is my classical piece of music created. So I just need to adjust the volumes and see if I'm happy. I think I'm happy there. You could, of course, add some other classical instruments as well and extend the song as you wish, but there are the skills you need to create some classical music.